No woman alive could ever manage a shot like that, they said. The spotters were already begging for air support when Lieutenant Marcus Hale dismissed Alyssa Reed's offer to take the shot herself. Now, Chief Petty Officer Alyssa Reed lay pressed against the icy rock, her body swallowed by the dense mountain fog rolling across the peaks of northern Kira. Her Macmillan TAC-50 was trained on a cluster of enemy fighters assembling mortars over 2,000 meters away, a distance that made even science doubt precision. Yet her grandfather's Bronze Star citation spoke of another impossible shot that once saved an entire platoon in Vietnam. Chief Reed adjusted the parallax on her scope, the fog devouring the jagged ridges below her perch. At 31, she served with SEAL Team Phantom as their long-range marksman. She had maintained her overwatch for 14 relentless hours, eyes locked on the valley where 12 operators were pinned inside a small compound. Hostile forces were preparing indirect fire from so far out most shooters wouldn't have dared to try. To her teammates, she was the quiet professional, the steady hand who had mastered everything from M4 carbines to anti-materiel rifles, who could read the wind faster in her head than others could through an app. What they never knew was that her gift for precision had been born not in a classroom but on her grandfather's ranch in Redfield, Colorado, firing his old Winchester Model 70, the same rifle that had once saved 30 Marines. Hey, everyone, whether you're watching from the front lines or from home, hit subscribe, because these are the kinds of stories that deserve to live on. Alyssa's path into long-range marksmanship began at just 8 years old on that dusty cattle ranch near Redfield. Her grandfather, Colonel Samuel Reed, a Marine Scout sniper in Vietnam, had earned his medal for a miraculous shot that destroyed an enemy gun nest at a distance no one thought possible. He taught her that shooting was just math with real consequences, wind speed multiplied by time of flight, bullet drop measured in milliradians. Even the Earth's rotation mattered at extreme distances. Every morning before school, they read the wind through shimmering mirage, estimated ranges by eye, and practiced breathing until her heartbeat stopped nudging the reticle. He set targets at unknown distances across open fields, forcing her to use the mil-dot formula to find range. The real skill, he told her, isn't squeezing the trigger, kid. It's understanding everything that happens to that bullet the moment it leaves the barrel. He would show her the old Bronze Star citation and tell the story of the one impossible shot that saved 30 Marines. She enlisted in the Navy at 22. After finishing a mathematics degree, her test scores had caught the recruiter's attention, and she crushed the Naval Special Warfare Sniper course, coming out top of her class. The first woman in that cycle, the instructors tried every method to break her, making her take shots after marathon runs with hands trembling from exhaustion. Even then, she still put rounds in center mass at 1,000 meters. When N.S. Dudler Command needed a long-range precision shooter for special operations, her name rose to the top of the list. She hadn't joined for medals or applause, but to honor her grandfather's legacy. He died 2 months before her graduation. His last words were to always take the hard shots everyone else called impossible. Doubt began during mission planning 12 hours earlier. Intelligence had tracked an enemy mortar team moving into position 2.2 kilometers from the compound where the SEALs planned their raid. Lieutenant Marcus Hale called it out during the briefing. That's 2,200 meters from our overwatch, extreme even for precision systems. We'll call in air if they go active. Alyssa had already run the terrain model in her head, running angles and wind vectors. Sir, I can make that shot with the TAC-50. I've trained to that distance in similar conditions, she reported. Sergeant Daniel Cole, her spotter, actually laughed. Chief, with altitude, wind shear and morning thermals, you'll need perfect conditions and more luck than skill. Hale cut in. We're not risking this mission on low probability shots. Your overwatch is standard engagement range, under 500 meters. Air support is on standby. At that moment, air support was still 20 minutes out and the mortar team was nearly set up. Through her optic, she could pick them out. 5 fighters assembling an 82mm mortar that could soon rain rounds onto the pinned SEAL element. Radio traffic went frantic. Hale's voice crackled in her ear. "Reed, tell me you have something." "Mortar team at 2100, she said, pausing to run the numbers. 47 meters of elevation. That's the edge of effective range, sir. Marginal probability." She heard him curse, then order the element to prepare for incoming indirect fires while they waited for close air support that might not arrive in time. Alyssa forced her eye back to the scope, swallowing a hot sting of frustration as the valley sharpened into painful clarity. The mortar leader setting the base plate, assistant gunners ramming rounds, and a wavering heat shimmer that would bend her bullet's path. And her grandfather's voice slid into her head. "When everyone says it's impossible, that's when you prove what's possible." She thought about the 12 phantom operators below, men who'd folded her into their brotherhood after doubting her, and who'd trusted her through 16 missions, and she thought of Marcus Hale, a capable commander opting for the safe, conventional call instead of the risky right one. Without really deciding, her hands started dialing in 18, 5 minutes of elevation for that distance. Her mind traced the round's journey. Roughly 3 seconds in flight, massive drop compensation, a wind nudging left. The math felt both gorgeous and terrifying. At that range, the bullet would pass the transonic zone and risk instability crossing the sound barrier, leaving virtually no room for error. 1 mile-per-hour mistake in the wind read could send the shot 2 feet wide. Yet, she'd landed similar ranges in training with this rifle, and her grandfather had once made the one shot that saved 30 Marines. She keyed the radio again. "Sir, I have a high-confidence firing solution on the mortar team. Request permission to engage." After a pause, Hale answered, "Reed, if you're confident, you're cleared hot. Make it count." Through the scope, Alyssa watched the mortar team fire a ranging round that exploded 600 meters from the compound as they walked it in and adjusted. Voices on the net spiked with urgency when the second round landed 300 meters out. At that rate, the next volleys would be on the compound within 2 shots, and close air support was still 15 minutes away, so she eased deeper into position and let the muscle memory of thousands of trigger pulls take over as the TAC-50 settled against her shoulder like an old friend. A purpose-built long-range beast with a match-grade barrel made for moments like this. She read the Mirage bands downrange, judging how the air bent light at different distances. 8 miles per hour at her position, maybe 12 mid-flight, dropping to 6 near the target. And her elevation turret clicked as she dialed in 18.5 mils and 8.2 left for wind drift, while she loaded a 750 grain Hornady AOX round, heavy and balanced for distance. The math had to be flawless. She was about to arc that bullet through gravity and air itself, a tiny calculation that would decide whether 12 men lived or died, and she had only one clean shot before the muzzle blast would betray her. The enemy fired again. A shell slammed 150 meters short of the compound, spraying dirt up against the walls. Alyssa emptied her lungs, relaxed until her pulse vanished beneath the crosshairs, and held the reticle over the team leader's chest, counting the 3-second flight in her head. Any movement in that window meant a miss. Then squeezed the trigger with the calm pressure Colonel Samuel Reed had drilled into her. The TAC-50 thundered, the muzzle brake sending a 10-foot spray of dust and fog, and she stayed locked behind the scope watching the invisible arc. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3, impact. The round slammed center mass, and the leader crumpled where he stood. Before the others could react, she cycled the bolt, chambered another round, and shifted to the assistant gunner, who froze in disbelief. 3 seconds later, he dropped, reaching for the tube, and she fired 3 more deliberate, calculated shots, each holding those long heartbeats before impact. 4 rounds connected, 4 down, the 5th sprinting into nearby caves before she could reacquire, the mortar tube abandoned and rounds scattering useless in the dust. Rounds scattered uselessly across the dust. Through her scope, she watched enemy positions stir, scanning the fog-cloaked cliffs for a ghost they would never spot. Hale's voice came over the comms, steady now and threaded with respect. Outstanding work, Reed. 4 KIA confirmed. Mortar threat neutralized. Cover our movement, shifting to alternate extract. She kept her eye on the valley as the team withdrew, tracking every shadow. The math had been perfect. The shot clean. Exactly how her grandfather would have done it. The after-action report would log the engagement in cold military terms. 4 enemy KIA at 2,470 meters, verified by ISR drone footage that time-stamped each hit. GPS coordinates recorded, range data double-checked by 3 independent observers. Naval Special Warfare Command later reviewed the footage for training, dissecting how she'd managed the transonic transition and shifting winds at multiple altitudes. There would be the usual paperwork about an extreme-range engagement, but Hale's authorization and the lives saved made the review routine. A week later, at Camp Harland, Reed sat in the briefing room, while Hale pinned a Bronze Star with Valor to her uniform. The citation echoed her grandfather's from 50 years before for extraordinary marksmanship under fire, saving fellow warriors with surgical precision. The same phantom operators who'd once doubted her now queued up asking for ballistic lessons, hungry to learn her methods. But the moment that lingered wasn't the ceremony. It was a quiet conversation with Sergeant Daniel Cole, the spotter who had laughed at her earlier claim. "Chief, I owe you an apology," he said. "I've been spotting 8 years. I would have called that a long shot at best. Hell, I called it luck. How did you know you'd hit it?" She thought of her grandfather, of training, genetics, instinct, and math. Her answer was simple. When your teammates' lives are on the line, even long odds are worth taking. 6 months later, she finished her active duty contract and moved to the reserves, heading home to Redfield, Colorado, to open a precision shooting school for law enforcement and the military. She mounted her Bronze Star beside Colonel Samuel Reed's Silver Star in the ranch house, 2 generations defined by impossible shots that saved American lives. In the new long-range facility she built with her retirement pay, she trained the next wave of marksmen, especially young women who faced the same doubt she once had. The Reed family legacy, taking the hardest shots when it mattered most, lived on through every student who learned that sometimes the hardest trigger pull is the one that saves the day.